All right, so I have a client of mine here. We'll call him Kavoth. From the if you ever read the King Killer Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss, he's a big fan of it, so that's where his name comes from. If you recognize the reference, that was actually something we worked on in our coaching. Was working on his poeticism. I have to turn on your audio. There we go. I'm glad I just remembered to turn on your audio to record it.
Yeah, we did have to work on it because
Yeah.
it turns out that all those authors are depressed, and that was
Yeah. Yeah. He can't write his third novel because he's chronically depressed, which, I mean, that's bad, but these aren't the kind of people you want to model for seduction, right? So, being this really poetic, waxing poetic kind of guy, it does have its place in seduction if you do it right. But what we wanted to work on was kind of making you a little bit more stoic. That's what we, towards the end of our session, really started to focus on. And
it's a little bit interesting because I think the route we took was initially trying not to be as stoic, because I think one of the problems with me was that, like in the audios that I would show you and even some of the videos, I was overly stiff and also kind of monotonous.
yeah, stiff and monotonous would be a good way of. And then what we had to do was kind of open you up. And then the result of opening up was, sometimes you come off like you're chasing a bit too much. You're kind of giving her too much energy and too much validation. And then we close it off. But now you're not being stiff, you're being stoic, which there's a big distinction between them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, let's kind of go over where you were before we started our coaching. We'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess let me just start in a little bit of a beginning. So I've been in pickup almost now since officially like 2017, but really in practice since like late 2018. And over that time, I got about 20 lays and some number of dates that's not really tracked. Um, what I found interesting looking back over the numbers, because I do keep track of that, or I was keeping track of that since 2018.
Spreadsheet guy.
I had a spreadsheet, and over the years, they kept getting more and more detailed in what I was keeping track of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so between 2018 and 2020, I think my stat tracking was pretty low. So apparently, I only tracked that I did about 220 approaches in those 2 years, which seems wrong, but let's call it that. 2021, about 225 approaches. 2022, I think I actually did keep a relatively good track, so about 200 approaches. 2023, about 365 approaches, which is roughly one a day, which is kind of sad. And this year alone, it's April 17th as of the date today. I think my number of approaches is like 385, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've approached more in these 4 months than I did in all of 2023.
Yeah.
And then in all of 2018 to 2020 combined.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild. In terms of like stats, if we look at the numbers, I think in 2021, I had like 7 dates and 3 lays. 2022, I had like 2022 was actually a pretty solid year for me, because I actually did get coaching with Teamster, which was also like really helpful for me at that time. I was focusing more on night game because of my like some personal life stuff that I was going on, that I just didn't have time during the week to actually go out and day game. And so I was focusing a lot more on night game. And so my stats were actually like much lower in terms of how many approaches, but in ratios, it was actually pretty decent. And I think I had 6 lays that year,
Mm-hmm.
and then 6 lays in 2023 off of 365 approaches.
Yeah.
Which is a much worse ratio than in 2022. And then 2024 comes around, and we started talking, I think, early to mid January.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, I hadn't done any approaches in 2024 up until we started talking, basically. I had gone to Miami to kind of clear my head. And what I found interesting was when we got on our first call together, you basically diagnosed me as being dead on the inside, which I would consider it as pretty accurate. And I think I said it best in terms, like, if we wanted to sum this testimonial into like a sentence, I think the best is just, I was dead inside when we started, and I feel much more alive right now. And I think some of the numbers just speak for themselves. So let's just, like, in the past 4 months, I've been on 21 dates. I've pulled 8 girls home, and I fucked 3 of them. Um, and that's nothing, like, there's a lot of like numbers involved there with a lot of like good responses. The girls are behaving more sexually to me in dates that I would get during day game, which has not been the case. I did at some point have girls behaving sexually with me at night game,
Yeah.
uh, but I think that's also kind of gone down because I stopped doing night game last year due to some health issues, and I just honestly haven't picked back up into it because I can't sleep after a night out,
Yeah.
and just sucks to go out that late.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I've kissed 10 of those girls, and it's been kind of wild because it feels like there have been 3 moments, I think, in my seduction career where I felt like I was breaking through. The first one was when I first started, and I had like a summer where I lived in New York, and I had 3 months where I was basically just approaching, and that felt like I was close to breaking through. But then I went back to college and was too nervous to do any approaches on campus. And so when I got back out of, when I graduated and went back into the real world, it was like trying to get back up to the level where I was when I started was actually much more difficult. And then the second time I felt like I leveled up was in 2022. And then like life pathways just hit where I couldn't do much approaching because I was just so busy with other stuff. And so the third time I felt it is actually right now, where I feel like I actually have the time, I have the ability to put in the effort, and like I'm finding that vibe within myself to push myself to get better. And so I think the numbers are like kind of there. I kind of meandered about how I got there, but
Yeah. Three lays in 3.5 months. Well, because
and
we didn't start till end of January. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
keep in mind, like within that, there were like 2 different booty calls that I was asleep for,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
which is just completely on brand for me as a person.
Yeah.
There were like a bunch of pulls that were just monstrous LMR that I just didn't have the ability to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And there were also a bunch of dates where like my vibe just like under like a little bit better circumstances, if my vibe had been the right way, they should have like ended up
Yeah.
being nice because the girls were just super into me, and I was just like they were trying to connect with me, and I would just be like, I don't care about your connection. I just want to talk about stuff that I want to talk about, and I would just
Yeah.
basically prevent them from being okay coming home with me.
Like with the
Uh,
Russian girl. That was the one. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
was the
remember
one
that.
where basically she wanted to fuck me, like, and I just wouldn't stop
Because
talking.
you recorded the audio and you played it over, and
Yeah,
and you didn't know what happened at first. You kind of just gave me a little like overview, and then you listened to it and you're like, oh my god, I totally was not paying attention to
yeah. I
what.
mean, she's telling me this super emotional story of how like she loved going to India because she thought it was like such an amazing place, and I'm like, oh, cool. So like, how are the photos? Do you take any good photos? And it's just
Yeah.
like why the fuck am I like? Why don't I deal more? Like, what is the emotionality of being there? Like, oh,
Right.
that explains like brown guys maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you're blurred out, but you're Indian, right?
Yeah.
So, she was obviously trying to show like, yeah, I want brown dick, right? I mean, like, I'm into it. I had a spiritual experience there, so I connect with guys from there, and then that's just giving you a leg up. So she clearly likes guys like you, but there's still the game aspect where you need to connect with her, and unfortunately, you didn't.
Yeah, and she was trying really hard, so I actually do feel super bad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in terms of results, like I think part of this is you helping me get back to like finding like my own like success that has been there in the past,
Hmm.
and then you also helping me find that like. So part of the reason I came to you for this was because you are like the day game guy,
Hmm.
and I wanted to focus more on day game. But I
Hmm.
think the major reason that I did want to come to you was because I wanted like your sexual vibe.
Yeah.
I wanted that confidence to just express myself sexually in a way that was attractive without feeling like I would creep women out in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And that was something that really scared me. And so the fact that it scared me is the reason I was like, okay, this is probably a sign that I should come to Hector.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. I mean, Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad I was able to kind of unlock that.
Yeah,
And that is also, sorry, what was it?
still a work in progress, but
Yeah.
definitely miles better than before.
Yeah. I mean, that's sexuality is one of the more advanced things. I mean, it's hard to, first you have to work on making her feel comfortable. Then she has to have some base level of attraction, which keeps her from being, the comfort allows her to express it. And then being attracted means you won't be creepy, because if you're sexual with a girl who's attracted, you're not creepy. If you're sexual with a girl who's not attracted, that's creepiness. So you have to establish those, but then, you're kind of working towards a place where you're able to focus on that sexuality, but it's something that, is definitely down the line. So that's why when we first started and you were kind of dead inside, it's like, all right, we got to wake you up. Then once you woke up and you're kind of going out there again and putting in effort, and we're kind of working on, your texting and your different little minutia that you needed to work on. Once that was kind of chiseled, then it's like, okay, now we need to work on making you a little bit more stoic, kind of, which we started to work on in the beginning a little bit, where you were being very poetic with your explanations. And I'm like, it comes off like you're trying to be poetic, but actually it's lifeless, because you're just like, you're like a car salesman, just like talking, but it doesn't fucking mean anything. So, it was good for us to work on that. Then at the end, okay, once that's all fixed, okay, now we can start being sexual. And you've started to notice girls are just, is there anything like concrete, or is just this vibe of like, you feel like girls are just more sexual around you?
So there are some concrete things. There are some that are more
Intangible.
intangible.
Yeah.
Actually, even those, they're kind of concrete. I'll give a few examples off the top. The first one that comes to mind is, like, I had gone on an instant date with this girl, this Ukrainian girl, I think half Ukrainian, half Polish, which, like, I've talked to like a lot of people in pickup in the city, and they're always like, man, Ukrainian girls are just they're so hard and they're so bad. Like, they're such tough girls to game.
Oh, like they're
And
cold.
yeah, they're like cold and stuff, and
Yeah.
like they're just like, yeah, in general, also, like, I think people just assume that brown guys have a hard time with like white girls and European chicks, which I don't know. Maybe it's just I don't know, maybe
I don't get it, but maybe
yeah, like like these girls have seemed to love me pretty hard, so who knows.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so we go and we're talking, and one thing I've been doing a lot is just focusing. I've been doing like more seductive physical touch, and I've been focusing on getting my eye contact better.
Yeah.
My eye contact, I think, on approaching is something that probably needs to be improved, but on dates, usually it's a lot better. And I'm like, in this case, like sometimes like I'll close the distance better, and I've been doing a lot more like single finger like touching and like playing with her hands a little bit with just my fingers, which
Yeah.
tends to be a little bit more delicately sexual, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she just kind of out of the blue started asking some like sexual questions to me. She was like, what's like the dirtiest thing you've ever done? Which to me, it was like, that's a relatively new sort of thing. Because I have gotten it in the past, but I hadn't gotten it in the like last 2 years. So it was like something I'd lost, and I was getting it back.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool. The other one was obviously like two different girls booty called me. Like they sent like one of them sent a message around like 11 p.m. Unfortunately, that one I was just down with the flu, so there was literally nothing I could do on that one. I was just sick and asleep. And then she messaged the next day at 11 p.m. also. And I was like, well, I'm still down with the flu and I'm still feverish. And then I tried setting her up like the next day, and by that point the ship had sailed.
Yeah.
Then again, there was another girl, like I met her, and she was like, I'm on my way to a date with someone, like it might work out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm fine. Like, let's meet up. We can meet up separate from that. And she's like, I even told her, like, if you want, you don't have to give me your number, by the way. She's like, no, I'll give it to you. So I text her, and she responds back at like midnight, or like saying, hey, after her date has already ended.
It was 12:01.
Yeah, and I was
so clearly, yeah. Unfortunately, but that's the day game life. You put all your energy in the day so you can rest at night. But clearly, her date didn't turn out too great.
Yeah, and then there's like another instant date. brought her, and she was like making jokes that she like couldn't come home with me, and unfortunately there was some like logistical issues because she was visiting for like a day, and she had to meet her friends after. And so like I'm walking her somewhere, and she's like, "Oh, it'd be so like bad if like you took me into this alley, because we've been making like serial killer jokes at each other, which is a thing that like I like to do because I like dark humor." And yeah, so I took her into the alley. We made out, but it wasn't like a deep enough alley for like fucking. Like it was like literally right next to the street. But
You
it
didn't
was
tell me
like
about this. You should have just finger banged her. Why not?
I had considered that. I was like, I should probably should. I like I've thought about it, and I was like, I definitely could have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which honestly might have made her come out and like hit me up after her dinner. I think I ended up going way too romantic on that instead of like trying to like go into that sexuality part.
That was the
Like,
girl who went on a date after you met her?
no, this is a
Oh,
different
it's a
girl.
different girl, and she went out for a date. Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you definitely got a
I
finger
gave you
girl.
that audio. You can, I think you have it if you
Oh,
want
okay.
to.
Yeah, yeah. You gave me a lot of audios. You're working very hard.
Yeah, and then fuck, I had another one. Anyway, there was the girl who like messaged me. She saw like this is the only night game really that I've done. She's like, we had a good conversation. I isolated, and then she was like leaving with her friends. I was like, stay here with me. Probably should have just been like, let's fucking go home.
Yeah.
Like that was the vibe. And she's like, because I pussyfooted it, she went with her friends. And then once I said bye to her, I started talking to another girl. She sees me, comes up and says bye with like a sad look on her face and leaves. And then like 2 minutes later, she's like, sends me a text saying, I wanted to kiss you goodbye so badly, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
were
I
already
wrote
with.
that one.
So those are just some of the stuff that I've noticed in terms of girls being more sexual, which I think the more interesting part is that they're doing it off of approaches in the day, which that is new. The day game part is new.
Right, right. You know, if you're at night, there's a little bit more of an atmosphere of like, okay, it's hookup time, and also people are drinking. But then if you're doing it stone cold sober and they're thinking sexually about you, I mean, that's a pretty big sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah. And then there's like stuff where I've seen like some of your videos on YouTube, and it was like, I think one of those videos, if you want like a girl to fuck you, you say this one thing, and it's like how you like do the sexual direct for the pull. So there was this one girl, and when I was living in Miami, she's like, "Are you flirting with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. I actually want to take you home." Which she actually liked, but it turns out in the process of the approach, I'd also insulted her economic position, and so she was obviously not as down for that.
Yeah.
But you know, it was something new I tried because it was something you had kind of inspired me to do. Because
Proposition a girl.
yeah, the proposition, it was something I'd never felt allowed to do, and I think hearing it from you, like there are a lot of things you've told me, like, hey, you know, you can do this, right?
Oh, like
And
walk out on a girl, like you.
yeah,
Yeah, like you walked out on a date.
I walked out on a date, which also like was
And
a
I just
pretty,
talked to you about it like the weekend before, and then a few days later you did it.
yeah,
I was like, "Yeah, you can do it," and you're like, "What?" Like you almost like it was illegal.
yeah,
I was like, "No, if she's not giving." Well, I told you to kind of plow forward a little bit, like she had a
yeah.
wall up, and kind of ask, like, "Hey, you know, you got a wall up. Can we connect?" And then if she gives you nothing, why stay there?
Yeah, so I mean, I told her like it was like the way that date went. It was like she comes in and like we sit down, like it's a place with a couch. So I sit on the couch, living room for her, and uh, she like sits on the chair as far away from me as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, like listen, like the couch is comfy. You want to sit like. Do you want to sit here? Like it feels kind of like an interview with us, like facing across. And she's like, "It should feel like an interview." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Okay." And it did not go much smooth. It didn't like improve from there. Like she saw that wall, and I was like, "Hey, it honestly feels like you have a little bit of a wall up.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be one, but what's up?" And she's like, "I feel like there should be a wall up. Like I don't know you." And I was like, "Yeah, but we're here on a date, and we're trying to like get to know each other, and it's kind of hard to do that when you have a wall up." Obviously, keep in mind when I said this, I was much more like pussyfooting it. I was not as confident in how I said it because I've never done it before.
Right.
But I was trying it, which I
Yeah.
think is the main thing of note here. And at some point, I was like, okay, I can tell like we're just not on the same page here, so I'm gonna go. And as I was pussyfooting saying that, she's like, "I'm gonna go." And I was like, okay, sure. I mean, I was going to go, and I was about to say it, but you can save face, and I'll let you go.
Right. She was just trying to be the first one to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, usually if a girl's like that, she's going through something, and this is just her chance to like, I got you. And then, some other guy got her or whatever time, she got stood up or flaked on or fucked and chucked, whatever. But you did it. That was the important part. And now it doesn't make you succeed on that date, but it makes you succeed more in the future because girls can sense you have that willingness to walk away.
Yeah, I think I fucked one of the girls in like the next 2 dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, it's fine. It's chill. Like
Instead of just plowing through.
Like I got a lot going on at this point. Like since we've started, I'm basically going on like 3 dates a week. It's either 3 dates a week. It's the potential. It's definitely the potential for 3 dates a week. I'm going on like at least one instant date a week for the past like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's like these numbers haven't really been there before. I've never gone on this many dates. I'm definitely needing to find cheaper spots to take girls because it's just getting expensive.
Yeah, just go on walks.
Yeah,
park walks.
Yeah, that could be another step. But yeah, I think I feel so much like there's so much potential for the future. Like I literally went out yesterday. I did like 6 or 7 approaches, and 2 of them were just like immediately like flirtatious over text messaging. I sent you the messages, and like these are on bad days. Like these are not like the past like week and a half has not been a good couple of weeks for me. Like I've been a little bit not as good because some bad habits crept back in that I need to get rid of. But even with bad weeks, like I'm still ending up on instant dates. I'm still like getting numbers that these girls are like being flirty with, and like I'm still having a fun time. It's good. I feel so much more energetic. I feel more full of energy. Yeah, life's good, man. Life is good.
Good. I'm happy to hear. That's awesome. So, I mean, so there's like I guess the stats, there's the, kind of the techniques that we worked on or whatever, changes that we had to make. What was one of the things that if you had like, what surprised you about the coaching, if anything did surprise you? Or was it what you expected?
I think you surprised me in a way.
Okay.
I think your personality sometimes on your videos can be a little different than
like
in this case you're a much more calm and kind of reflective person, but I was also surprised like how insightful you were. Because like there's the fact like you read me off the like first like 15 minutes like, oh, that's your problem, you're dead inside. I appreciated the bluntness because it was what I needed at that time, and in general I appreciate bluntness to trying to like be a little bit nice about it. But it's also like these random, like I started recording audio because I realized I probably should have been doing that, like and you would like listen to it and you'd be like, oh, this is the problem, and I'd be like, I didn't realize that. Like there were 2 specific cases that I can think of off the top of my head that were pretty, to me I was like, oh wow, that's just so fucking insightful. One is there was this approach I did, and you're like, oh, she liked you right off the bat, and you're like, wait, this is where she lost her interest, and you're like, wait, what happened right here? And you were really good at digging into it to figure out, oh, like you heard there was something I said. It was specifically like, yeah, I mean, when I approached her, she was pretty, but she was actually a lot older. And you like zeroed in on that. You're like, wait, when did you realize that? And it was like, oh, that's why she lost interest, because she noticed in your vibe after you said the open, like that you lost some interest. And so she reflected that and she lost interest too. And that's why it didn't go the way you thought it would go.
Because at first you're coming in like, hey, you're so hot, basically. Yeah. And then she turns around and you're like, you kind of notice the wrinkles, you notice the, the skin isn't as like flush as a younger girl would be, and these things kind of hit you in a quick second, right?
Yeah.
And then it's gonna be on your face. You're gonna be like, hey, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you're vibing, and then she goes, oh, fuck this guy, you know,
Yeah.
like I
Right, right,
got so excited, not fuck you, but like I got excited, and then oh, okay, well, actually, it's probably more sadness. She probably feels sadness. She probably feels, you know, disappointed. She probably feels hurt, and then she loses interest, and then okay, so we listened to the audio. I remember that one, and it was like she changed. Do you know what happened in that moment? Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, cool, interesting. Okay, so more insightful. But I'm curious. What? So I don't. How do I come off on the video? So this is
So
important for.
you
No, I
come
mean.
across yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not that you're not insightful. It's more that I expected you to be a bit more like, I guess, energetic all over the place, a little bit more
Oh, Energizer Bunny, kind of hippity
yeah,
hoppity. I'm not gonna like, let's deep think about this. I got
yeah.
you. So maybe on videos, it comes off, you know, someone who's watching this and they're like, okay, do I want to work with Hector, or do I want to do his day game course, or do I
Yeah,
want to?
you'll push them, and you're definitely capable of bringing that Energizer Bunny when like you're working in the situation that demands it.
Mm-hmm.
But for like this one-on-one situation where we're working together, you're like, I'll just see you, and you'll just be like, you'll just be leaning back, and you're just like nodding and thinking, and you'll like wait like a little bit of time as you're like thinking through and processing what exactly do I want to say and respond, and I can literally like, see the thoughts coming in together to form like what is actually the correct interpretation of the events.
Right,
Uh,
not just what comes up first. Yeah.
yeah. So like the
Hmm.
other situation was like an approach I did. I was like, "Hey, honestly, I thought you were gorgeous," and you're like, "You did that approach so well." And then I said, "Then you're like, wait." Then you like listen to it. And you're like, "Wait, what? Why is she leaving?" And you re-listen to it again. You're like, "I had said, listen, can you wait for 2 minutes? Or do you have like 2 minutes? Do you have 2 minutes right now?" And we were in like a main shopping district, and you're like, "Oh, she thought you were trying to sell her something." And I was like, "That thought didn't even occur to me."
Yeah. Yeah. Like, can I have 2 minutes of your time? I mean, that's immediately sales. Oh, guy trying to sell me something. Indian guy trying to sell me something on the
Hey man,
street.
it was Miami. At least
Right.
I might look a little bit Mexican. Let's give me a break.
Right, yeah, maybe, right? So that's just like boom, automatically trips a autopilot response. And at first she really liked it, like, oh, you're really beautiful. Oh, he's buttering me up, so I'll buy his fucking whatever cell phone or skincare routine
So
or whatever.
it was a bummer. Like that girl was so attractive, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, man, she just thinks I'm trying to sell her something. I didn't realize until like a week later when we listened to that.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a bummer.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, that's why personal coaching is such a boon, because there's so
Yeah,
many things that could not be in any course, no matter how robust it is, could not be. Like, how would I consider that possibility in teaching you in a course? You know, like, it's something that only can come up in a specific situation that you come through, and you know, it helps that you had audio. But even if you were telling me the story, I would, you know, ask more details. So there's certain things that are only available to a one-on-one conversation where someone's giving it their full attention, you know. So
yeah,
that speaks to the importance of coaching and the
yeah.
importance of one-on-one attention.
I will say that both the times I've leveled up the fastest and the most powerfully have been like right after, and during the actual process of getting coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both times were just the most incredible. Like I think the first time around I had been in Miami for the full session of my coaching. I got back to New York, so I'm in New York, and I think I might have said that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And I got back to New York, and all of a sudden I was noticing so many girls were just giving me sexual, like, eye contact, sexual kind of like they were checking me out. They were like, it felt like they could smell it on me. And over like the last 2 years, I kind of lost that. And recently, it feels like it's coming back, which is
Mm.
really exciting to see because now I actually have the time to really dig into that, process it, and really focus on bringing it out more permanently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. So rediscovering something, but also then hopefully bringing it to a new level where you realize your sexuality is not something you should be ashamed of, you know?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I feel like my coaching with you um, has been about removing stuff from my own game more than it's been like there has been stuff we've been adding as well, but
Sure.
it feels a lot like there's been a lot of stuff being removed, like a lot of cleaning, a lot of refining, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like this is the stuff that's well, but like there are all these things that are just extraneous. You're doing them and they're just taking away from the overall effect. So cut them out. Like don't be poetic. Like keep getting simpler and simpler. Get dumber. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
watch your trashy reality TV and get dumber.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
forgot. I recommended that to you. Just watch
yeah.
trashy. Are you still doing that? Are you still watching trashy
So
TV shows?
I'm addicted to it, man. I'm addicted.
That's fun. That's
Watching
fun.
Love Island USA season 2,
Yeah,
and it's so much fun. It was
because
so.
because now you're glued into the social dynamics.
Oh yeah, there's like this time it's interesting because it's like during the COVID. It's like it's Love Island during COVID.
Uh huh.
So a lot of I'm looking at the guys thread. There's only like one guy who's actually like sexual, and this is a guy who's like was an ex football player as a college player, like in college, and he's the only one that it's like he's actually like making moves. This other guy who's fucked like 3 girls in his life. So there are essentially like 2 actually masculine dudes in there, and a whole bunch of fucking people who are just so bad at like dating.
Yeah.
And even the girls are actually not really that good, but it feels more like everyone's just been touch starved. That it's interesting, kind of seeing that, and I'm like, oh my god, I have better game than like these guys,
Yeah.
and like they're just such fucking like they're just such simps.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just not. They're just castrated.
Yeah,
They've gotten been castrated by.
largely was me too. Like I felt that way after COVID, and I like it took me a while to get back. I've been feeling it for the past year, and then we started, and I feel so much more like my balls are back and my
Yeah.
dick is. I just want to swim around all the time. Uh, so we go into our most recent assignment from our final coaching session.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be an interesting like how it ended, and how you feel
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah. So I mean, I was more talking about the joking part of the jerk offer parts, but
Oh, when I advised that you should like walk around your room and jerk off everywhere. Oh yeah, because you said you'd been no fapping for a while, and
yeah,
then I was like, that's lame. Like, jerk off. Become comfortable jerking off. Because you have dealt with ED and premature ejaculation, which I have too, and I've had tons of clients. And one of the biggest things is that like you can make all these 1% improvements, like get sleep is pretty important, but like some stop smoking and do this and do that and do cardio, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I've noticed all these things help. When I get better cardio, yeah, I have a harder erection. Like, all these things are true, but if at the end of the day you're nervous, you're not going to get hard. I don't care how healthy you are. And I could jerk off 5 times in a day and then go meet up with a girl, and then because she booty called me and we hook up and I'm hard as a rock because I'm not nervous. And a large part of being nervous about sexuality is not feeling like you're allowed to be sexual. Especially male sexuality is more dominant, whereas female sexuality is submissive. So if you're not feeling dominant, you're not feeling in charge, you're not feeling like, the big monkey hulking over her and, pounding her into the pavement, you're not going to get as hard. So it's mostly about your shame. So if you're purposefully not allowing yourself to jerk off, that's usually reinforcing your shame around sexuality. So fucking jerk off as much as you want, come all over the floor. Some people porn, I don't know, porn yes, porn no, I don't give a fuck.
yeah, I'm trying to perform just because there's like that one just seems like it's healthier not to.
Then
Um,
yeah, then use your memory, remember girls that you've fucked, and allow that to turn you on. I mean, I'm
yeah,
almost getting a chub right now thinking about, some girls I've fucked, right? So just, allow yourself to be sexual in conversation, allow in your mind, in your own home. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, I'm castrating myself in my own home. It's like, if you're not a monk, then, if there's no purpose behind this discipline, then, if you're a sexual guy, then just be more sexual. So, I see what you meant. Like, the advice that I gave you to, to just jerk off more. but then towards the end, now we've also been working on being more stoic.
Which is, I think that one's interesting. So it's funny you say that, because I'd also been noticing, I think there are a couple of things in the recent weeks that we talked about that are specifically more, I don't want to say advanced, because they actually are very fundamental.
Sure.
But they're, I guess, just different. Like, one is just, you were listening to some of like my date audios and reading some of the reports, and you're like, dude, you're just not going after the windows. Like, you're just not seizing the windows at the right time. And because in my head, I was like, these girls are slotting me into a boyfriend candidate because my job, like just random like qualities, like my job, I'm not a bad boy enough. I'm just not that person that you would sleep with on a first date. And you're like, dude, that's not it. Like, they're giving you all the signals. You're just not behaving like someone who is a quick fuck. And I was like, oh shit. And so just noticing at this point now, I've also possibly, like, I miscalibrated with a girl yesterday, which honestly, like, I was trying to be overly physical on the approach, and she was just like, ran away. And I was like, oh shit. I probably should not have done that, but I stayed in, and she's like, I'm gonna go. I was like, okay, fine, bye. Because usually girls are a little bit more open to me being warmly physical.
Yeah.
Like, I usually hug them or touch them now in the daytime after the approach. So that one, I probably just didn't read her signals properly.
Yeah.
So I think going after the windows at the right time has been something where I don't. And that's, you were saying, is the biggest reason that girls are not sleeping quickly with me, is that I'm behaving like a boyfriend candidate. But then at the same time, when you ask them home after you do that and you be sexual direct, but you don't go through the windows, well, what do you expect is going to happen? Why do you expect they're not going to, like, obviously they're not going to text you. They're not going to be down for a second date.
Yeah. Yeah. You started to play the fuck boy, and then they got, oh, he's that kind of guy. Okay. But then you don't finish it. And then they're like, okay, he's a fuck boy. He's a boyfriend. He's a fuck boy. What do I want from him? What does he want from me? Fuck this shit. And then you just get deleted from the files,
So with that, I think there's also an element of me being too energetic on the approach. Which, I mean, is probably better than me being dead inside on the approach.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why we had to do it in the beginning, because there's a difference between stoic and stiff. There's a difference between calm and dead inside.
Yeah. And so now we're working back to, like, have that, I think, that energy that's inside, but expressing it in a way that is calm and, like,
distilling it.
Yeah.
Putting it through the distillery and refining it and refining it and refining it. And then, it's like quadruple distilled vodka that's like, tastes like fucking water. That's what you want. You want to go down like water, but then she gets drunk on you, kind of, so to speak. See, there's poetry, but it fit, That's how you...
I just want her to get drunk on my cum. That'd be
There you go. There you go. See, you got to start talking like that. That'll be a thing later down the line, is starting to become really raunchy. But that takes time.
I remember I had given you the audio of this girl I met on the beach. She was this Russian girl. Mm-hmm. And you were like, so I think you said, you were listening to the audio and you're like, I love the way this girl laughs. It's such a full bellied laugh. And I was like, I told you, I was like, honestly, I love the way it laughed. Like, it made me want to
put my dick in her mouth.
It made me want to put my dick in her mouth. And you're like, that's should have said that.
You should have said yeah. You should have said
you're
that.
Like, you were like, this girl's giving you all the signals. Like, she likes the party. She's like, you should have just picked her up and told her, like, you're my Russian princess and I'm going to be your, like, invader. I'm going to carry you into the beach. And you're like, I think the most interesting thing you told me across, like, the 12 weeks was somewhere in the middle, was you had told me like you're trying to be this super deep guy, but every conversation you're having is so superficial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And listening to the audios, I was like, holy shit. Like girls would have these like I was trying to deep dive and I was doing it so badly. I was like there are these moments where girls are uh like for example the Russian girl, how the fuck is she in the US? And I was like, oh cool, you're from Russia. It must be kind of weird being in the it must be nice the weather here, right? Because the weather
Yeah.
in Miami is warmer than in
Not
Moscow.
when did you come here? Why are you here? How can
How
Oh
did you
yeah, that
get
was
in?
the girl who I presumed she's probably has daddy's money. It's like how is she
Yeah,
getting past
you were like
immigration?
I still remember this compliment. You were like, you should have said you would have asked something like, "Are you an oligarch's daughter?" And the
Yeah.
way you said it, like so like it was so nice, and I was like, "Oh my god, I should have used that line." That's such a, and that basically I've been trying to implement that like sort of curiosity because I am curious. The issue for me is more that I get in my head and I have a hard time getting out of my head.
Mm.
And when I get out of my head and I'm actually focused on the girl, it's like like everything just becomes so much easier. I can calibrate easy. The conversational like points are all so much more easy to kind of navigate. I can figure out how to deep dive and go deep on these without making it too deep and letting it build too much tension in a bad way. And then I can bring it up for some laughter and then go back deep. And that was honestly something that until you pointed out that I was being like superficial, which probably comes from the same place of me trying to be poetic and failing, uh, I didn't notice it. And I think that is probably going to be a huge part. That being able to express my sexuality and just being able to make sexual jokes, being able to make like being sexually forward with the girl without being needy, creepy, or like uncalibrated to where she's at.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the things you always say is nothing is inappropriate. Things might only be inappropriate at that time for her.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've really been trying to work on because it's always scary to try to be sexual with a girl. Like I remember that when I did that first Miami time where I was like, I actually just want to take you home. I was so nervous while doing it because these are kind of things that we've been trained out of and we're just not supposed to do. And so having you there kind of telling me like, you can do this. I've
Mm-hmm.
done it. Goes
Mm-hmm.
well. And then me, I think on some level, I think if you're getting coached and you're getting coached by a person like you need to have that willingness to believe, um,
Yeah.
or your willingness to just try anything.
Yeah.
And for me, it was more of a willingness to believe that it would work more than it was a willingness to try. Um, but I think you need one of those willingnesses. Otherwise, you might not push yourself to the right place. You might be like, uh, there's got to be like different ways. And I think, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can go about seduction. I really wanted to learn your method because it felt like the thing I needed right now at this time.
Yeah.
And it's been exactly what I have needed. And I'm very happy with where the results are. I'm very happy with where they're going. Yeah, there's just I could keep talking to you for however long you want to keep talking about this for,
Yeah.
but there's just so much to explore, so much to keep going deeper on. I think it's wonderful.
Awesome. It's amazing to hear. I think that's a great way to end it. So, a lot to unpack there. Not really one thread, just a lot of different threads that
Yeah.
hopefully are useful to anyone. Maybe you just learned something from this video. Maybe you don't need to, you don't have to sign up for coaching with me. You just learned enough.
I would not recommend that one.
Yeah. But if you are watching this and maybe you're hesitant about signing up for with me because I come off a certain way, hopefully this has dispelled any doubts. But if you want that one-on-one attention, nothing's going to beat it because I get to see what you need versus a different guy comes in and he'll need the complete opposite thing that you needed. It just completely depends on where he's at and what he needs. Or if this is, if you're looking at this video and more just questioning whether you want to do day game or not, this whole.
I think that is actually something we might have talked about is like the difference between day game and night game.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what do you feel like? What have been the advantages of day game? And what I mean, do you prefer it now? Is it something
I, oh,
that?
I so I've always been a day game guy. It's
Okay.
mostly there was just a period in my life where I didn't have time for it.
Yeah. So what have you felt has been like the big advantages of day game?
Well, the girls, there's no competition really,
Yeah.
and honestly, I feel a little bit more of a man doing it because it's just so much harder. Um, I'll say both day game and night game are difficult for their own reasons,
Yeah.
and the solutions for getting good at both are kind of different, even if they have similar fundamentals.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just love day game so much more. I can. It's basically having your pick of the candy store
Yeah.
versus
Waiting till Friday and Saturday night, and
yeah, and then also like there's just so much more competition. There's so much more status games you have to play. There's so much more social expertise you do need, and you need to navigate. And there's so many more wild cards. There's so much more chaos, and all of that can be really exciting and fun. But if you don't have the time to dedicate to it that way, it's so much more of a struggle. Versus day game, I can do it just going to the fucking grocery store.
Yeah.
And like I can be thinking about it. I can keep working on it even when I don't necessarily dedicate time for it. Even though
Yeah.
I do dedicate time for it.
Yeah.
I go out after work every day. I go out and approach. But I'll even do it when I'm just out and about. And there's just a little bit more of a magical feeling I feel with it
Mm-hmm.
because like the girls tend to be so much more excited. Uh, like even the ones that reject you, like in night game, you'll get much more bitchy rejections, I think, uh, than you would in day game.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly just because like sometimes girls are playing status games with their own, so they'll be like, it's good to reject you just because it looks good to reject you, like
Mm-hmm.
for their social validation. Um, Obviously, like I think if you like for me, like I always loved day game. I do want to eventually go back and do some night game when I figure out how to make my body handle it.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, day game is just so much fun. Like there's something, and you get it's good. It's healthy exercise. You walk around. You are being active, um, and hopefully you're getting laid. And then sex is also great exercise.
Good cardio.
Yeah, it's honestly just so much fun. I think leveling up in day game feels so incredible because there's so many beautiful girls out there, and you can kind of just whenever you just ask them like, "How has the dating life been?" They're like, "Oh, most guys are boring," and you're like, "Oh shit!" So if I just become exciting and become that person who's like spontaneous and takes them on an adventure, well, it's also like a gift you're giving them.
Yeah.
Uh, Even if you're like for me, like I'm not looking for anything long term. I really just want to become that fuckboy. And at the same time, like I want to make sure that like I give them that adventure because that's why I feel so bad about my ED. It's like fuck, you give this girl this fucking amazing experience, then you just can't fuck her for like 45 minutes to an hour,
Yeah.
and just it's
Yeah.
such an anticlimax right there.
You'll have you heard back from that girl?
Oh, I'm seeing her on Friday.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah,
So
I've
even though it turned into a
half,
noodle after a few minutes.
I also came prematurely. Like I
Yeah.
lasted, maybe yeah, I lasted for
Everything
half.
that was bad.
I lasted for half a thrust. I couldn't get hard again, and she wants to see me again.
Yeah. So what you've been transforming into is good enough to get her for a second date, even though you turned into a wet noodle and then busted in a stroke.
Half a
Half a
stroke.
stroke. You busted in half a stroke. Right.
I
I
didn't
mean,
make it back.
that's good. I didn't make it back. I died halfway and I didn't even get a full. Oh, that's great. That's funny because I guess it is technically a half stroke. A full stroke needs the return voyage, but yeah, just boom. I've done that before. It's happened. Yeah, interesting.
And the strategy there is you just blame the girl. It's like this is your fault.
Yeah, you're just so fucking sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you don't feel ashamed, she really won't blame you. The ED girls take that like it's their fault. But the coming early, it can actually be a compliment. But the ED, most girls actually just think it's their. Very few girls are going to hold it against you. Wow. Yeah. Good. So there's day game. Great for
I
other
love it.
reasons.
I recommend day game. If you can do both, I think doing both is obviously like even better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like as many avenues for game as possible is obviously like the more you do it, the more you get back.
Have you been
Um,
doing online dating since we've done this?
I don't, yeah, that I don't count. I don't have the photos for it.
Yeah.
One day maybe. One day
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Like what's the like when you're I don't know when you're getting 3 dates a week via day game. Do you really need online game?
Now, yeah, and the quality is usually going to be less.
Like I have your texting book. I know how to fucking text like a fucking pro,
You
and
could use it as a texting exercise.
that's yeah. But so one day I need to get matches and then we'll talk.
Yeah, get the matches first. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I have enough girls text like getting enough numbers that the texting practice is there.
Yeah.
And usually the mistakes like they're becoming more and more minor, and the texts are becoming better and better, and so I'm not too worried about that. It feels like texting used to be a huge issue with me. I was like always would get numbers, I get responses, and they wouldn't convert to dates. Now my number to date ratio is slowly pushing back up, which is fucking amazing because it just makes approaching so much more easy to motivate yourself to do because you're like, oh shit, I only need to do like 5 approaches and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a date. Oh shit, I only need to do like 10 approaches and I know I'll find like I only need to do 30 approaches. It's actually like every 30 girls I get an instant date usually.
Nice. Yeah.
Spreadsheets, man, spreadsheets. They make you.
Spreadsheets. Yeah, they can be good. I'm not a spreadsheet guy, but I can see I can see it. Yeah, and you know some guys might feel like that's a lot of work, but you're also a lot more ambitious. You know, so you know for some guy, you know, getting laid 3 times in the first 3.5, basically 3 months of the year, that's a pretty fucking great deal. You know, did you
Yeah,
do
but
you,
yeah,
do you
for me, I look at that, I'm like, oh shit, I could have done so much better.
yeah, yeah, and that's the fun of it. I mean, so you know, but results may vary. I mean, for someone else, you might be more targeted with your approaches. You know, you might be, you know, but you have actually pretty high quality. You're also going for higher quality girls. You said that your quality has always been a bit higher, so you're definitely. I mean, your hit rate's going to be lower if you're going after hotter girls. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a better hit rate with the higher quality girls because they can feel the actual attraction.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
as opposed to lower quality girls tend to react a little bit worse on me.
Attainability issues. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But usually the only issue for higher quality girls is usually that they're already taken more than anything else.
Statistically, I mean, I think it's 70% of all women are in relationships,
Yeah.
and that's just across the board. If you include them being really pretty, I mean, that's going to bump up to fucking 80, 85, 90. So it's just a statistical issue. Hey, I mean, you could always on occasion lower your standards. I'm not
I've
saying
done it, I've done it, but yeah.
go for girls. You know, that's like most of the guys who are Uber players, they'll go all across the spectrum. I mean, obviously they'll there's a limit, right?
Yeah, I
6.
think you and I talked about that, and I think that's one of the initial moments when I was like, okay, there's like, you have a, like this. That's when I was like, okay, there's a lot of depth to Hector. Is like, because I think if you remember, we talked about like what is actually motivating you to go into seduction, and
That's right. We came up with 3 things. That's right.
there are like 3 reasons. There's like you want like hedonism is obviously like one of them,
Hmm.
but that actually so that's not my main motivator, which is why
That
I
was
went
your
for
third. That
yeah,
was third on the list, and then
which is
there was
why
achievement.
yeah, and I don't remember what the third one was.
For I mean, there's generally achievement, like checking the boxes. And comfort, like you know, like a skill set. It was a skill set. Like I have the skill to get it. So
Yeah,
okay, I've developed it. I don't feel like a loser, or I don't feel like I can't find a girl. I have the skill set, so I feel comfortable about it. That was your number one priority, actually, was the skill set, right?
I think it was actually. I think the reason I go for more of like some plasticky kind of girls is
Mm.
because I want like it was more of a status thing. Like I want to know that I'm the sort of person that can get it and
Yeah,
feel that way about myself.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's like what I liked was there was no judgment from you either on that. Like it's just a thing, and
Yeah, I
like
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
But that's kind of why like going after the lower quality girls tends not to be as easy for me
Because
because
you're
I just
judging them. I mean, and
yeah
that's okay. I mean, that's just how you work. Whereas me,
yeah
I would say the achievement was second. First, it was about hedonism, but not so much that like I mean, I fucked a few girls who you could say were just like okay, she just did it to do it, but I'm not gonna pretend I haven't.
yeah
Um, but I would say that I was a little bit more generally drawn by, oh, I just like to fuck. I just like girls, like she might not have a pretty face, but she has a great ass. Okay. What's the problem? Like, is there some overseer saying, oh, you fucked a six, so, it's like, fuck you. Right. But were there girls who was like, yeah, that's a 10 in my book? Like, okay. Right. And then standards changed over time and then it got more and more strict. But then I was like, okay, we're just being limited by physics. There's not a girl who literally has the perfect face. You like
mhm.
this, you like that. So I've ticked all my boxes. The only girl I haven't like checked the box with is like actually super plastic bimbo blonde big titties, because that's not even really my type. But I would say, but besides that, I've done it almost every box I could think of like types or of quality, 8, 9, 10, whatever you want to call it. But that was my secondary motivation, whereas that's kind of your first motivation, and then hedonism is your third. So, but here's the thing: is you might need to train that down the line. I don't think that's anything you need to work on right now. But if you're like ever like, hey, I want to improve, well, okay, you need to just train your raw hedonism. Like just fuck girls because you want to fuck them, not because it's an achievement. And that might actually have to do with your ED a little bit. You're
Maybe
you're putting too much importance on the lay as an achievement rather than the lay as something I want to do to get my dick wet and bust a nut. So,
yeah
but that's definitely more advanced stuff down the line, more philosophical bullshit. But yeah, so right. So if anyone is watching this and they needed some, you could use it as a motivation to approach, or if you as selling day game, and willing to go out there, don't even have to get my course. You could just go out and try it yourself. Obviously, you're going to do it faster if you get my course, or if you wanted to sign up for coaching. This is a good motivation.
I did get that. Quite good.
You what?
I did get the day game course and I did
That's right.
like
Yeah, yeah.
I think I got all your material.
Good. There you
I
go.
liked it. Um, yeah, phenomenal. Good
Cool.
stuff.
Glad to hear. So, there was a lot of different threads here, so take from it what you will. Thank you, Kvoth, for coming. It's kind of funny, actually, because in the books, Kvoth is dead inside, right? That's what
And in the present day, he's dead inside.
right. That's he's struggling with. Um, we'll see with the third book if it ever comes out.
I
See
don't
what
think we will.
happens.
I look forward to that day.
The doors of stone will always be closed. All right. So thank you for joining me, and thank you to anyone listening to this. And like I said, if you want to sign up for coaching, there will probably be a link below you wherever you're watching this, YouTube or my website or whatever. Or if you are on my website, sign up for a consultation call or DM me on Instagram is the best way to get in contact with me. Or if you're watching this on Girls Chase, you can, sign up with whatever form is below this video. And or get my Meet Girls Everywhere course if you're watching this, or my texting book, or whatever the fuck else I have offered. Give me your money, and I will give you wisdom in return, and with that wisdom, you can get results. So thank you again, Kavoth, and to all of you, I love you. Go fuck yourself, and goodbye.